Lights flicker, shadows dance, and Quick Scare is here to guide you through the darkest corners of the supernatural. Brace yourselves for a riveting experience as we unfold the mysteries that lurk in the shadows. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but after what happened to me, I feel a responsibility to warn others. About 6 months ago, I started experiencing this strange ringing in my left ear. It wasn't too bothersome at first, but as the weeks passed, it grew louder and more persistent. I knew I needed to see a doctor, so I found a highly recommended ear specialist in a small, nondescript clinic on the outskirts of town. The waiting room was dimly lit, and the air carried an unsettling, sterile scent. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the doctor's credentials were impeccable, and I decided to give it a shot. Dr. Malcolm Everett was his name, a tall and thin man with an unsettlingly stoic expression. His eyes seemed to pierce through you, leaving you with an uncomfortable feeling of vulnerability. As I sat in the cold examination chair, Dr. Everett examined my ears with meticulous precision. He was unusually silent during the examination, which made me uneasy. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice sending shivers down my spine. "I've identified the issue," he said, handing me a small vial of clear liquid. "This should help alleviate the ringing. Use it every night before bed." I left the clinic feeling a mixture of relief and unease. That night I followed his instructions, applying the mysterious liquid to my ear. The ringing did seem to subside a bit, but something just felt off. Days turned into weeks, and the ringing returned with a vengeance. Frustrated, I decided to seek a second opinion. The new doctor was baffled by Dr. Everett's diagnosis and insisted on running a battery of tests. What he discovered sent chills down my spine. My ear canal had been tampered with, and the liquid Dr. Everett had given me was causing irreparable damage. Fear gnawed at me as I confronted Dr. Everett about the new findings. His reaction was anything but expected. He smiled, a cold and sinister grin that made my blood run cold. "You were never meant to know," he whispered, his voice oozing malevolence. Before I could react, he injected me with a mysterious substance, rendering me paralyzed. I could feel every movement but was unable to respond. As he leaned in, he revealed his horrifying intentions. Dr. Everett wasn't a healer but a sadistic scientist experimenting on unsuspecting patients. The ringing in my ear wasn't a symptom but a signal. He had implanted a tiny device deep in my ear canal, allowing him to control and monitor my every move. His twisted experiments were fueled by a desire for power and control. He reveled in the fear and helplessness of his victims, exploiting their vulnerabilities for his sick pleasure. The paralysis wore off just enough for me to witness the grotesque experiments he had conducted on other unfortunate souls, their tortured faces etched into my memory. With every ounce of strength, I managed to escape his clutches. The authorities were alerted, and Dr. Everett vanished without a trace. The device in my ear was removed, but the psychological scars remained. I couldn't escape the haunting memories of that malevolent audiologist and the horrors he had inflicted upon me and others. So, dear readers, be wary of Dr. Malcolm Everett, a monster disguised as a healer. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows of those seemingly trustworthy clinics. And if you hear a faint ringing in your ear, beware. You might be the next victim of the evil ear doctor. Hey there, gather around, because I've got a story to tell you that will send shivers down your spine. It all started when I moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere for a job opportunity. The town seemed like your typical quiet, peaceful place, but little did I know it was hiding a horrifying secret. I quickly became friends with my neighbors, and one evening, as we were sharing spooky stories, one old-timer named Mr. Thompson leaned in and whispered about Dr. Blackwell. The name alone sent chills down my spine, But Mr. Thompson had this look of genuine fear in his eyes. According to him, Dr. Blackwell was the town's eccentric neurosurgeon, known for his cutting-edge procedures and mysterious experiments. People would go into his clinic seeking treatment for headaches, migraines, and other common ailments, but they would come out changed, their eyes haunted and filled with an otherworldly terror. Intrigued and slightly skeptical, I decided to do some digging. The more I asked around, the more ominous stories I uncovered. The townsfolk spoke of patients disappearing after going under Dr. Blackwell's knife, only to reappear weeks later, different somehow. Their personalities altered as if something had taken root in their minds. One night, unable to resist the lure of the unknown, I snuck into Dr. Blackwell's clinic. The air inside was thick with an unsettling stillness. As I wandered through the dimly lit hallways, I stumbled upon a door ajar. Peeking inside, my blood turned to ice. There, in the flickering light, was Dr. Blackwell himself, hunched over a patient lying motionless on the operating table. His eyes glowed with an unnatural fervor, and I could see strange, pulsating symbols etched onto the patient's skull. It was a scene straight out of a horror movie. Unable to tear my eyes away, I watched in horror as Dr. Blackwell extracted something from the patient's head, a shadowy, writhing mass that seemed to be alive. The patient's eyes snapped open, devoid of any humanity. It was as if their soul had been replaced by a malevolent force. I retreated in terror, but as I stumbled back through the hallways, I felt a sudden sharp pain in my own head. It was as if something had latched onto my thoughts, digging into the darkest corners of my mind. Panicking, I fled the clinic, vowing never to return. In the days that followed, I noticed changes in myself. Nightmares plagued my sleep, and I could hear whispers in the back of my mind. It was as if Dr. Blackwell's experiment had left a mark on me, a curse that refused to be ignored. Desperate for answers, I delved deeper into the town's history. That's when I stumbled upon a forgotten legend, a tale of a cursed artifact hidden beneath the clinic. It was said to grant unimaginable power to those who dared to use it, but at a price too ghastly to contemplate. Realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. Dr. Blackwell wasn't just a mad scientist. He was a puppet of an ancient, malevolent force, using the cursed artifact to conduct unspeakable experiments on unsuspecting victims. Determined to break the curse, I returned to the clinic, armed with the knowledge I had uncovered. As I ventured into the dark depths below, I discovered the cursed artifact hidden in a long-forgotten chamber. With a mixture of fear and determination, I destroyed the accursed object, hoping it would free the town from Dr. Blackwell's unholy grip. But the moment the artifact shattered, the clinic began to shake violently. The very foundation of the building seemed to rebel against the removal of the ancient curse. As I raced to escape, the walls of the clinic seemed to close in around me, and I could hear the anguished screams of trapped souls echoing through the corridors. Just when I thought I was doomed, the shaking stopped. I stumbled out into the night, gasping for breath as the clinic crumbled behind me. The once quiet town was left in ruins, its dark secret exposed to the world. As I stood there catching my breath, I realized the true horror of Dr. Blackwell's experiments. The cursed artifact wasn't just a source of power, it was a gateway to a realm of unimaginable darkness. Dr. Blackwell had unwittingly unleashed a malevolent force that had twisted the fabric of reality itself. The unexpected twist: the curse didn't end with the destruction of the artifact. In the weeks that followed, I found myself haunted by spectral visions and tormented by the same whispers that had driven Dr. Blackwell to madness. It seemed that the malevolent force had found a new host, me. So here I am, sharing my tale with you, fellow readers, as a warning. Beware the quiet towns with hidden secrets, for you never know when you might stumble upon an evil head doctor and a curse that refuses to be laid to rest. The shadows of Dr. Blackwell's experiments still linger, and who's to say where they might strike next? Another quick scare in the books. Like if you survived, comment your favorite scare and subscribe for more horror. Sleep tight, and don't let the nightmares bite.